Hello, adventurers. I am here today with Aloysius, who is the owner-operator of Haunted Harbor Tours in Annapolis, Maryland. We actually met a few weeks ago when I took the Haunted Harbor tour, and I was really fascinated with the way you told stories and the way you conducted the tour. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in the ghost tour industry.
I've just always been fascinated by the dreary and the strange and all of these things. Like as a kid, I think my favorite book was a book of mysteries like the Tutankhamun mummy and the Hope Diamond. It was just all of the unexplained. From like a Russian man who showed up with no name, talking about how he's been locked in a basement his entire life, and like all of these very strange kind of events throughout human history. And then my father took me on a ghost tour in Gettysburg.
Oh, great.
And that was like, oh, you could do that for a living. I remember that was the first time I heard the story Crybaby Bridge. I quickly discovered was told everywhere.
Everywhere.
And there were a couple of times on that tour that I remember hearing ghost stories that I would hear a lot, you know, in other places. I got accepted into Savannah College of Art and Design. I got a job at a haunted mansion, which you heard about on the tour.
Yes. Yep.
From there, it was just kind of like I found what I meant to do.
So how did you wind up in Annapolis?
I am from the Eastern Shore.
Oh, okay.
And before that, I'm from Rockville. So I'm Maryland native.
So,
the newspapers in Annapolis, the Gazette, which today is called the Capital Gazette, although it's gone through a bunch of different names over the years, dates back to 1722.
Oh, wow.
And so I figured with the Library of Congress newspaper archive, which basically is a database of PDFs now, where you can search all of the old newspapers and pull up all of the stories written in newspapers, I mean, for the last 200, 300 years, and read all of the most interesting stories.
Well, that's what I think is interesting about your ghost tour and, you know, the stories that you tell. You make a point of it, and you can tell that you're very passionate about sticking to the facts of the stories, whereas where other ghost tours really talk about folklore and legends, and that's fabulous. Why is it so important to you that you research your stories and that you have verifiable facts behind the stories that you're telling?
Well, okay, everybody loves legends, right? Legends
Sure.
And fairy tale and all of that. I mean, there is a problem with the fact that a ghost story should be real, and realism is what makes something terrifying. When I speak of a ghost, is because I've either interacted with the ghost, as is with most of my ghosts. The headless shadow I have yet to encounter, but I have so many people who have told me how afraid of it they were and all of the experiences that they've had with it, that I know it's real. And by just staying with the real ones, I'm able to create that certainty. Obviously, there are a lot of charlatans in the United States, and that's what I try to avoid. But I do know the things that I have found and that I've encountered and that other people have encountered to me. When a story like the Myrtles Plantation is telling stories that are not part of history, that are confirmed to have not been the actual way people died, it's a great story, right? And it's a great legend.
And I will post a link to the vlog where he talks about the Myrtles Plantation.
The fact of the matter is that mother, Sarah Wood, whatever, actually died of yellow fever. And the children also died of yellow fever. It's not a true story. Like, we have every single historic record of these people. Ancestry.com, death pages, obituaries, they all show that these people died of yellow fever, which is a brutal way to go.
You can go ahead and check that out, and he'll go into more of the details.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
And like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Hit that bell.
Yes.
I know.
And comment.
But in contrast to the Myrtles Plantation is Belgrove.
Belgrove. There is a very big contrast between the two. Now, the Myrtles Plantation's the more famous of the two, right?
It's been on all of the big ghost story shows.
It has, and it has the poison cake. It is a fantastic story. It's a revenge plot, and it's like Django Unchained, you know, a slave getting revenge upon the slavers. Throughout most of history, a revised history such as, I don't know if you know the book A Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Yes.
Okay, so they're playing chess through the fence of the Holocaust, and that's a really destructive revision of history, because they're saying, oh, the Holocaust isn't so bad. This boy was able to play chess through the fence. Right. And when a revision of history comes, it has the potential to make people sing zippity-doo-dah in a plantation of the South. And that's why I try to cut everything untrue to history away. Real history is more Gothic. It's less Twilight and more Bram Stoker's Dracula. You know what I mean?
Well, it's ugly and it's messy and it's not neat and tidy at the end of the day most of the time.
Most of the time, yes. And going into the history, right? Like the Myrtles Plantation, there may be aspects of it that are true, but because we don't know the truth of it, we can never know.
Right.
Versus the Belgrove Plantation, with the young woman who moves into this place. There's a woman who's kind of in charge of everything, and the murder that occurs between the two of them, it's real, it's raw, it's visceral. There are court proceedings to go behind it, which is rare in the South given the subject matter, but it's honest, you know. And that's what separates the two, is one is trying to create a narrative and the other is a factual history. And that's my main goal, is to get rid of the narrative hooks that have been woven into ghost stories. They lived happily ever after, like Thomas Dance up there. There's no happily ever after. The bad guy never gets his comeuppance. You know, he was trying to get to know this young woman. The legend of the city is that he murdered Thomas Dance. And the legend's there for a reason. I love the legends, but I always go out of my way to make sure that the legend fits the history.
I think that's really fascinating, but I also see a little bit of a dichotomy because you're also an artist.
Yes.
And so you're so factual when you're telling your, you know, on your tours, but then I feel like the artistic side of you is where maybe the legends and the stories and things like that kind of come out. Is that, am I reading
absolutely.
that the right way?
In my free time, I write Gothic fiction, right? I'm currently writing a novel about a man who lives in the shadow of Dracula's castle and has fallen in love with essentially Dracula's demonic daughter.
Oh.
And it's a Gothic love story. You know, where things are not going to end up okay.
Talk about not ending well. No, it's not going to.
And
I don't need to read it to know that's not going to end
well.
No,
and it's not Dracula. His name is Lord Damien Dante Raven. What would you do if you lived in a town where Dracula's castle is looming large? He controls the land. To be able to look at the history and to look at the narrative and to find the in-between place, it takes a lot of creativity.
So you're an artist, so you're also a writer.
Yes.
And then you also play the theremin.
There are a few people in the world who are able to artistically express themselves with the theremin. And it's not an easy instrument to play. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it. And with that Moog, The Moog is definitely not a. It's a good theremin to learn the notes and like the positions, but it's not good to make actual theremin noise. It sounds more like a computer keyboard.
I could tell that there is pure joy on your face when you're talking about the theremin. And is it the Dies Irae?
So the Dies Irae was supposed to be the song of the rapture. I mean, if you're familiar with Christian mythology, eventually the clouds will open, the angels will be seen in mass, and they will be holding, I mean, this is probably metaphor. The angels will play the trumpets to call the souls to the heaven. All souls will be called according to Christian mythology. The Dies Irae is supposed to be the sound of the trumpets of the song that they play. However, that was written in the 13th century or the 12th century, and over the years, the sound of the Dies Irae has become kind of grim sound.
But it's in a lot of movies.
It's in everything.
And, yeah,
anytime you see a funeral scene, you're probably hearing the Dies Irae. Sweeney Todd is fascinating because that play has now become a Tim Burton film. Every single song is the Dies Irae in several different compositions. Even Groundhog's Day plays the Dies Irae when, I believe, in that suicide montage, where he's standing on top of the bell tower after he's just constantly reincarnating. Bill Murray stands on top of the clock tower and drops, and you hear the Dies Irae play.
To go back to your art, you did have one of the tarot cards that you created was hanging in the Maryland Art Gallery?
Yeah, I've had several pieces over the years in galleries. I invented a magnetic ferrofluid process. I found a way to paint with magnets. I've hung a few times in galleries. The tarot card art was my most recent.
How close are you to finishing the tarot deck? Do you think it will ever be completed, or is it just something that you've been working on from time to time?
It's a passion project. With me, there are so many things that I care about and so many things that really matter to me that I jump from one thing to another, depending on the seasons, right? Like right now is a great season for art. It's nice to be outside, it's fun to paint.
And it's a beautiful day. I mean, we're here sitting on the green in Annapolis. I mean, the State House is right here. It's perfect.
It's perfect. So this is the time where I get the painting bug and the illustration bug. And then the winter time when everything gets cold, I'll sit in my house and I'll write. And, so it's just every season has a different creative endeavor, more or less.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I've never talked to anyone who kind of put it in those terms.
Creativity, is best seasonal because, in the summer heat, you don't want to be sitting in the sun painting. In the winter cold, you don't want to be, all that. Now the ghost tours I do year round because the ghost tours are how I make my living,
and you're the only one who
passion.
Gives those tours.
I'm
correct?
the only guy.
Do you ever change up your tour? Do you go to different streets? I know you kind of have to stay in the same area.
That's an interesting thing. So right now the boat show's happening. So where we met can't be on the tour.
Oh, wow.
And so the witch stories for this week are not being told.
Oh.
And so we're actually starting here in State Circle. What's cool about starting in State Circle is I can go anywhere in the city.
Yeah.
And so I've been considering maybe next year we'll just start in State Circle from this point forward.
One last question for you, other than I think we're going to do a tarot reading?
Yes.
Okay. What really chills you to the bone?
Helicopter moms.
And Karens.
And Karens, yes. Yeah. Well, the idea that when somebody comes on my tour and they have a child and they booked a 4-year-old onto my tour, like we're going to be dealing with strong content, you know.
It's not appropriate for children, I will tell you that.
It is not. Well,
and it does say that specifically on the website, and he's very clear about that.
And that's what I worry about. That's what keeps me up at night, is like, I don't want a child for the rest of their life waking up and seeing my face, seeing me do the horror stuff.
I think next I'm going to have my cards read.
Jen, people think chaos and harmony are opposite. They're not. They're more like lovers who walk hand in hand on a beach. And shuffle is the unification of chaos and harmony. They exist together, right? The shuffle is a chaotic method to bring order to the deck. The cards that are relevant to us will raise to the top, and the cards that are irrelevant will sink to the bottom. It takes about 6 shuffles for the Wheel of Fortune, success and misery, and the 5 of Wands, although this one is a rest, a break, to rise. And already, one, most likely the Wheel of Fortune, has risen. The easiest method to shuffle the deck is to use your middle finger and your index finger to push, and your middle finger and ring finger to hold, and to just allow it to flat down. And so, what you're gonna do is you're gonna shuffle. Set a number of shuffles. Give the universe a deck. Tell the universe when you'd like it to have it in order.
Okay.
Okay?
You made that look easy.
You're going to too. Look at that. Look at that. How easy it is. They're big. You know, they're not
They
light.
are, and I have smaller hands, so it's not as easy for me. That's going to be the last one.
All
I'm
right.
done.
Is this the top of the deck? Okay. So this is your soul card.
Okay.
This is the conflict that crosses you. Here is your distant past, or possibly goal. Here is your more recent past. Here is your near future. And here is something that's been on your mind. These 3 cards are kind of situational universe cards,
Okay.
and we'll talk about those as they go.
Okay.
And then here we have a meditation.
Okay.
Now this is the Hermetic Tara. This is my favorite deck. It was created by the Golden Dawn in the 1930s. Inverted 10 of Wands. So the 10 of Wands is a man, typically depicted as a man carrying a large bundle of sticks to a market. It is a fulfillment card that is also a heavy burden. And 10 of Wands is heavily associated with the oppression of a person to be forced in the physical world into the day-to-day life, the day-to-day grind, the work for another person, the labors of everything, versus the spiritual enlightenment and all of the more mystical things. The wand cards tend to be the mystical path, the soul path, right? To reach a higher state, to reach a higher learning. And the 10 of Wands typically is depicted as somebody being forced, instead of enlightenment and instead of their soul's path, to be forced into the day-to-day minutiae of work and labor. However, yours is inverted, meaning that you are making strides to break free of the minutiae of life and to find higher meaning and higher purpose and to seek more spiritual fulfillment. Wow. So, okay. So we have the 10 of Wands as your soul card. And it is inverted, so it looks more like this.
Right.
And then what we have crossing
is the Two of Swords, which is the inner peace and inner understanding of self that comes with the ability to guide your emotional response to things. So typically, think of it as the blind samurai who reacts to things using all of the senses. You know, the combat master. You're able to have an understanding of the nuance of what is happening, to understand like the nuance of human response and human emotions, to the point where you're not just stabbing people. You're seeking inner control, which makes a lot of sense considering you're also seeking a more spiritual thing, a more spiritual existence. Though you are a laborious person and you're working hard in life, you're also seeking a higher state of understanding. And this is kind of running alongside of that, saying that you're also getting a level of balance and peace in the inner soul and in the inner mind. This is a very good state to be in. But you don't feel super successful. You would like to be in a place where your art and where you have created something that you can put a level of pride in, right? Like, and to be able to achieve something great, this is definitely more of a goal, although it could also be a regret from the past. Maybe at some point you yearned to create something that you didn't, or you did create something and it was underappreciated. The Seven of Pentacles in my deck, what I've created for this is an artist who is painting and people are just walking right by, ignoring his paint. That is success unfulfilled. It means that you would like to be recognized for something that you created and haven't. Okay, you are on a soul quest. And you probably have been for a good while. Because you're already on your journey. You've already set out. You've crossed the threshold and you are seeking a soul's purpose. You are seeking to find your purpose in the universe. And you are walking the trail that leads to your destiny. Whether or not you've been walking this trail your whole life or whether or not you're setting out on it now, that's not really stated. But it seems as though you are walking towards a good purpose. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. The Blasted Tower is an incredible thing because what it means is that the unnecessary structures that we create in our lives will come crumbling down away from us, and we are going to be left to rebuild and to make something even better. So this is what I like to refer to as the Camus card. Camus says that we have all these pillars that we choose to lean on throughout our lives. And the Blasted Tower is when those pillars get knocked out from under us and we end up falling over. But it seems as though your journey of inner enlightenment and your journey is going to free you of some of the burden, most likely, right? Because right now you are overloaded with all those bundles of sticks, even though you're on your soul path and you're seeking your higher state. There are certain things that are holding you back into a more physical world. And so this is possibly going to knock some of that loose. And what's on your mind is the meticulous labor of day-to-day life. Knight of Pentacles, probably one of the most boring cards of all of tarot. He is a guy who is just doing work, but he's also never moving. This man is stuck in a meticulous position of labor and turmoil and work. And that's probably how you're feeling day to day, the grind of life, right? But that's all on your mind. Here in your inner emotions, you're feeling a bit defeated, oppressed by the world, as though certain powers have been stolen from you. Like you've been kicked around a little more. You haven't known much victory in recent years. And it's probably feeling a little heavy, right, in the soul. In your inner emotion, it feels like maybe you haven't gotten the achievements that you've yearned for. The same as the success unfulfilled has reached now an emotional state. And the outer universe, yeah, it seems as though something's coming your way. It's going to cause you to slow down and slow your roll. The universe is saying, maybe moving a little too fast, maybe Icarus is flying a little too high to the sun. And between all the cards that are building up to this, the universe is going to say, hey, take a moment. Appreciate life. Appreciate the beauty surrounding you. Because it can be gone in a moment, and it's always incredible when it is. Oh. So, your hopes and your fears are to have
It's the Princess of Wands.
Princess of Wands. I'm not going to show them that card.
Oh, no.
Typically,
no.
it's the page. This deck, though, it uses more feminine version for the
Yes,
for
it
the
may
page.
not be as appropriate to put on YouTube. I might get flagged, I don't know.
The princess in being in your hopes and your fears is that you are conscious of the fact and you want to be learning and expressing and experiencing the universe in this raw beauty. You may not understand all of it, and you may not understand that you're to be young and experiential. Not youth as in physical youth, but youth as in the appreciation of the mystical and the kind of like childlike wonder that comes with experiencing the spiritual. And your hope is to be able to connect with a more spiritual path and to be able to have a youthful kind of connection to things and understanding and appreciating and to learn. I think that what this is saying is that you need to shake things up. You need to throw some chemicals into the concoction. Temperance inverted is a chemical reaction. Heavy explosive force of emotion and creativity and everything. It's just basically the angel is pouring all of these chemicals into a brew and seeing what comes out. And so you need to trigger the tower to fall. You need to have that thing that's going to get you to slow down. You need to create the event that is going to make everything to follow that much more beautiful. There is a beauty in watching the tower fall, you know? Yeah, so there's some sort of chemical manifestation that I believe is already beginning. It's you who chooses to create the explosion. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. All I can say is stay tuned and we'll see where this explosion goes. And I'll be putting it on YouTube when it happens. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Would you say this is accurate?
I would say that this is scarily accurate. And I appreciate your knowledge and sharing this with me.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.